Two, one. All right, family. Hello, hello, hello. I hope everybody is ready. I don't own the rights to this music, but you know how we do it. I hope everybody is having a great week so far. I do have a guest coming on. I hope you're ready for this amazing show. This is my new show. Try to come on. All righty, you guys, we're back. I'm so sorry. I don't know what's going on with this broadcast today, but I do have an amazing guest, and we are going to talk about some things that's going on in the Black community. We know that we have issues, but I think we've had those issues for a while, and um, it's time for us to realize what's going on. It's time for us to realize that these issues need to be taken care of. And I have an amazing woman, and her views may be a little, it's not, they're not different, but to me, they just allowing us to see a little clearer. And I do believe that sometimes you have to speak to outside people in order to understand yourself better. And we are getting ready to join this amazing young woman on the show. Um, and we're going to see what her opinion is. Okay. And hi, how are you? Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How are you?
I'm wonderful. I am so glad that you could join me. This young woman is amazing. She's amazing. And I'm just gonna tell a little bit about you. She is a young woman that she has what, two masters, one in family therapy, marriage, all this great stuff. And she's young, of course. I wanted to invite, and I'm trying to get more of the younger people's perspective here. And I am so excited that she could come. I'm so excited that she's going to take time out of her busy schedule to come and talk to us to help us to understand what is really going on in the Black community. Can you, Miss Kiara, can you help us to identify some areas or help us to identify what do you see that's wrong with the Black community?
So that's an interesting question. I don't know that I see that there's anything in particular wrong with the Black community. I think that we are as a whole, like very adaptable. I think that we're very intelligent. I think we're very, very, very creative. But I do think that the way that society looks at us and portrays us on TV and makes laws that unfairly target us create a narrative that's not necessarily aligned with reality.
So what you're saying, if I'm understanding, is we're looking at us through society's eyes. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I so I I want to make sure that I'm like correctly or clearly explaining. So I don't necessarily think that we're looking at ourselves through society's eyes. I think that when people ask like what is wrong, what's going on in the black community, I don't think that anything that is going on is necessarily the fault of us. So, like, as any other culture or set of groups, we have our issues. You could say the same thing about, Asians. You can say the same thing about any sort of whites. So, German, Italian, we all have our issues, right? But when the question is what's wrong with the Black community, I don't think there's anything wrong with us. I think that we are doing the best that we can. And I think that we have kind of kicked butt um, in the last few hundred years or few decades. So pretty proud of us.
So, okay, with what you're seeing, how do we change our mindset to see it a different way if we're still involved in it? You understand what I'm saying? For instance,
Mhm.
if a husband is abusive, a wife is going through an abusive situation, how does she come out of that still in it?
I think that's kind of the $1 million question. So I know that the way that society is set up is in a way where it is prized or you get a lot more benefit from identifying with the white community and trying really hard to fit in and adapting a certain vernacular, surrounding yourself with certain types of friends, being a safe Black person, so to speak. But I also think that creating our own, like, I think that narrative has started, right? Where we now, we're celebrating Juneteenth, and like as much I know that people, have their thoughts about Kamala Harris, but seeing someone that is brown or looks like you in a position of power, I think that's where it starts because it challenges that narrative of Black people are not as smart. We can't hire Black people because they don't have these set of qualifications. They're not as well spoken. You can't say that because if you look at one of the highest positions of power in the United States, someone that's Black is in that position. So I think that working to just continue doing what we're doing, which we've been doing for a long time, which is getting education, getting in these high level positions where we can influence, make high powered decisions. I think that's kind of where it starts. And whether or not we'll see a huge change in our lifetimes, I don't know that we will, but I think that it's a very slow but steady change.
Let me ask you a question. Even with that, you have leaders now that have been so sold out to white supremacy that I don't even think they recognize because they've been doing it so long. And you have other Black people that are following behind them, okay, in their, that are following them, okay. So you have two different types of Black people. You have the type that see and they say, "Oh, I'm woke," and then you have the others that say, "I'm woke." So how do we bring these two woke people or non-woke people together, or do we?
Well, I think part of it is that benefit that I touched on of adapting the white ideas and the white culture and benefiting from that, right? If you become a safe Black person and you can coexist in white spaces and they're automatically maybe going to make decisions or say things or adopt a mindset that isn't necessarily in the best interest of Black people. So I think in there comes, so you talked about like Black leaders that have sort of sold out, and I do have to agree with that because um, I think just in general, you have to think of politicians as like they're all about money. And unfortunately, I think being white or black, I think at the end of the day, they are going to chase dollars. So I am 100% like, I think a grassroots person where like the goal is to get representatives from inside the community, right? So instead of voting for a politician that's been in politics for the last 25 years, has a degree in political science, has all white friends, I think that's where you have to change your mindset, do a little bit more research, and then maybe opt for, you know, the the black woman that has spent 10 to 15, years in nursing instead, or is a kindergarten teacher because they have a lot more like awareness of what goes on in like the in our lives than say someone who has just coexisted in this political circle and they're now just going after what makes them the most money, what sounds the best, what's going to allow them to be even more entrenched and accepted into the white community.
So we have to, so what I'm hearing you say is we have to be more conscious of who we're putting in office. We have to be more conscious that they have a black agenda. And I think we've been so afraid to ask those questions of, do you have a black agenda? Because from what I'm seeing, people aren't even mentioning black people. They're saying people of color. That means a whole spectrum of, you could be talking about brown people, you could be talking about people of color, means could be mean a variety. So we're so afraid to say, well, do you have a black agenda? And getting that answer, we're not doing that. We're not asking the question, do you have a black agenda?
And I think part of it is the word black is scary to like if unfortunately if you put the word black in front of some sort of policy or anything like that, automatically you're going to have white people who are like, "Well, why do they get this and I don't? Like why am I paying for this and it doesn't help me?" And I think that that's where it comes in being a little bit more discerning of the language. So I think that's where also doing a little bit more research comes in. For example, say they come up with a policy where, all women have access to a doula or something like that. Well, we all know that Black women are like 3 to 5 more times to experience like negative health outcomes and infant mortality than white women in childbirth, even if you control for education and health and age. So I think when you have a policy or a program that even if it doesn't necessarily say black, it is going to disproportionately benefit black people. I think that's also where it comes in. So even if it doesn't say the word black in front of it, if statistically there's an issue that's more likely to affect black women, we're probably going to be the most likely to get help from that. So I think it's also not paying attention to the word black being in front of it, but just being aware of the issues that affect the black community the most. And if there's a policy that comes up that is going to benefit that specific issue, maybe not pay so much attention to the word black being in front of it as the fact that it's an issue in our community, so therefore it's still going to benefit us, you know
So we kind of
most.
almost like hiding. We're going after what we need, because I see, here I am going it again. But they did it for the Asians, and they did a hate crime bill for the Asians. They gave just the Asians 50 million dollars. But it's almost like they can say Asian 50 billion, Pacific Islanders 50. I'm sorry, Asians 50 million, Pacific Islanders 30 billion. They can actually say those names, say those words, and it's okay because they look like everybody else. But as soon as you say black anything, people are like, oh my God, black people are getting something. And it's like, well, didn't you just get 50 million? Yeah, well, didn't you just get 30 billion? Well, but so what's the problem? People have a problem when they hear black. So you're telling me that we should go around the mountain. We can still get the policies passed, but just don't say black.
I don't know that I'm saying that we should go around the mountain, and I'm definitely not saying don't say the word black. I just think that unfortunately we have to be a little bit more discerning in the language. So even if we just don't necessarily hear the word black, we just have to keep aware of our most pressing issues. And if something comes up, if we hear someone that's addressing them, don't count it out just because it doesn't have the word black in front of it. Yeah.
Okay, so
So I
let's
don't want to say that we shouldn't say the word black, and I don't know. Yeah,
okay,
it's
so we're
frustrating.
getting back to this mental illness thing. I think that's a big part of our mental illness, and not just ours, but society as a whole. Society, America has got to get away from just seeing white folk. We're black, we're here. So if we do happen to mention black, just like they do stuff just for them, and it's okay. So let's get past the point and let's help America. Okay, get used to black folk. Let's help America get used to us saying black, because right now I don't think America is used to us saying the word black. So until America gets used to us saying the word black, how do we get them used to saying the word black if we're going to continuously, well, we better not mention it because we may not get it if they hear us say black, or if, well, we got to go around it, we can't, how do we get America used to black people? After 400 years, you would think they're used to us, but it seems to be that they're still having a problem with black people. So how do we get America used to black people?
I don't think that they're not used to black people. I just think that they're sort of used to ignoring black people.
Okay, even with that, how do we get them past the point of ignoring us, and how do we say, hey, we're here, deal with it, and this is what we need? How do we get bold enough to do that?
Again, I don't think it's a we thing because we've been speaking up, we've been marching, we've
The
created
marching's are
all these,
helping.
well, I'm saying we've created all of these movements in the past, well, wait, 60 years now. And I think that as a people, we're very loud. We advocate for ourselves. And even if we don't necessarily have anyone advocating with us, we've always been very outspoken about the issues in our community, what we want, what we need. And I think it's just a matter of, unfortunately, the powers that be don't necessarily respond until, like, I really think that, like, white outrage facilitates change, because until you get white people, especially white women, involved and they're out there marching too, I don't think that much happens. So I don't think it's necessarily about what we like. I don't think there's any. I don't think that there's anything that we do to be ignored. I think that we try the best that we can, but because of, society's hierarchy, it's a little bit harder for us to be heard unless we involve, unfortunately, white people in our cause. And once that happens, then I think that we actually see change. I mean, I think it's the same thing with, like, you know, the wait-ins. Oh my gosh, I read about this a while ago and I can't really, like, remember the details, but for the longest time, the civil rights, bill kind of sat in Congress, and until white people took notice and started speaking up and noticing, it kind of just sat there. And I think it's the same thing with the anti-lynching bill from a few years ago. It's just kind of sitting there, but I really think until white people take notice and speak up and become frustrated, really things just stay stagnant. They don't necessarily change.
Okay, so what you're saying is we don't have the power to change our own situation. Do we always have to include them? How do
I
we
don't
get
think that.
society used to us being the lead? Why is it that we always have to hide behind them, or they have to take up the calls, or they have to mention the calls for the calls to be important?
So
Why can't black people look and see the need and see active black folk actively doing something about a situation? And why not just jump on board? Why are they waiting for white people to say, oh, it's okay to do that before we do it? How do we
I,
get past that?
I'm not saying that we're waiting for a white savior. I'm saying that Black people have been very loud in advocating for ourselves, trying to shape society the way that we would like it to be. But I think it's a group effort, as a group of people that have been marginalized for so long, and where there are laws that are set up specifically to oppress us. There are doors that aren't open because of our names, or just the way that the system is set up, where maybe it's a little bit harder to get ahead if you're working with a one parent household instead of two. I think that it's a group effort, and until white people realize the role that they play in oppression and just overall, I think that we are doing the best that we can given the circumstances that we have. And I've said it before and I've said it again. I think if white people were like, if the situations were reversed, I don't think that they would be where we are, because we have, we have Black successful entrepreneurs and business owners and CEOs and engineers and actors and poet. Like we're like so creative. When we do something, everyone else wants to do it. But I think it's just that invisible something about us makes us invisible to white people. Like, even I was telling you about the TikTokers, right? Where these Black women are creating these dances on TikTok, and they decided to go on strike because someone white with, 10 times as many followers will go do the dance and they'll get credit for it instead of the original Black creator. So I think that when until white people realize that they're playing a role in this, how can we change everything without half of the population also taking part in it?
So you're saying that we have to include them.
I think that it would be very difficult to do without including them, unfortunately.
I don't, I just have, I think when they participate, they want to take over. We're
Yeah.
tired of them taking over. We should be able to do our own thing, support our own thing, and we make it important among us. We don't have to wait for white people to give us an approval to let us know that it's okay for you to be Black. It's okay for you to do, it's okay to free yourself. They're never, ever, ever, ever going to do that because they're dealing with mental illness too. And the reason I say that is if you can hang a human being and you bring your children to watch it and you burn that body and your children are watching it, you're passing down mental illness, whether you know it or not.
When
So
you
we're dealing
say,
with mental illness, period. So I think that until they come across and understand that they have more of a mental illness than Black people do, because I think we're fine. I think we have been brainwashed to believe that we have to wait for their approval. We've been brainwashed to believe that we're nothing without them. We've been brainwashed to believe now it is time to unbrainwash ourselves. How do we unbrainwash ourselves? Is there a word for unbrainwashing?
ah,
Is there a
well,
word for that?
I
How do
don't
we
know
do
that
that?
we
It's
I don't
almost
know that
okay,
we've ever.
deprogramming. That's what I want. Deprogramming. How do we deprogram ourselves to believe that white folks' truth is our truth? We have to hear it from them first before we actually move on it. No, we have to hear it from us, and they got to catch on because we are the leaders here, and it's time for us to change our positions, and it's time for us to let them know that you are the followers. We're the leaders now. So how do we change that role? How do we reverse that role reversal? How do we do this?
So I don't think that I don't I have to disagree. I don't necessarily think that we're waiting for approval. I don't think that we're telling them that they're the leaders, or again waiting for them to come save us. We're not waiting for them to come and take over our journey to equality. I just think that as a whole, it would be hard to get ourselves where we want to go without them at least acknowledging that they're playing a role in the system that oppresses
But
us, if
then
that makes
it
sense.
still sounds like we're giving them permission because you just said without them playing a role, it'll never take shape. But I think it's because of the mindset, and I think it's now time for us to change the mindset and
Are you still there? Think we might be having some technical issues.
To give up. We are not going to give up. We're back live again. I do apologize. I don't know what's going on here with the internet, but I'm going to wait for our guest to pop back on. And there she is. Hi. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my internet today, but it's almost like this important. This conversation is so important. My internet is like, we're not going to do this today. I'm like, oh, yes, you are. I don't care how many times we got to come. We got to, okay, well, we're going to make this happen. But I want us to get back to this amazing conversation. Come on back, you guys. Come on in. Come on back. I am this is a great conversation. We're gonna do a second fold of this because I think that right now it is time for us to really get it out there. I was making an example as far as Nike. You remember when Kaepernick, I think that's his name, knelt, right? And Nike promoted him, and everybody got behind Nike, and we rocked it out with Nike. Nike blew it out the ring with their network. I mean, with their profit, right? That's how important it is. But we as Black people have to understand that if we're going to do this, we got to come together and we can make this thing happen. I believe that. I don't believe that I have to wait for white folk to come to make things important. I believe that once we change our mindset, but it's in the process of changing our mindset. And that's what I really want you to talk about. How do we change our mindset to not even think about how we need to include them? Let's think about how we need to move forward without them, but us still kicking butt doing it. Because I don't believe for 1 minute, I think that's a stereotype. And I think that's the mindset that we had. But now it's this time for us to change our mindset to understand that we can do this without them. We don't need them to come up and say it's important for it to be important. I think right now we have to work on changing our mindset. Tell me how we can do that. Is it reiteration? Is it us talking about it? Is it us just saying, hey, you guys, we're going to do this and we're doing it? Or tell me, how can we change that mindset? Because that mindset is a white supremacy mindset for me, I think. From my understanding, if I'm waiting for white folk to tell me it's important for it to be important.
So I think that I'm talking about a society, like society as is, right? So how do we move forward? I think that what you
Yes,
might be referring to is, if you're saying how do we change our mindset completely, um, I think that maybe you're referring more to like a society where it's segregated again, right? Where
pretty
if
much.
we are
Because guess
totally to
what?
take
And you
our
know why I say
own.
that? You know why I say that? I don't mean to interrupt you, but you know why I say, because integration for us has not worked. We've tried integration. We were trying it, and it's still not working because they've never integrated with us. They've never came to our schools. They've never came to our churches. They've never came to our stores. They've never came. It's always been us going to them. It's us going to their stores, us going to their hospitals, us going to their schools, us going. So integration, and then sometimes when we come, they move. That's white flight, right? So it's never worked for us. Okay, so let's stop chasing. Let's stop chasing the carrots, and let's get the carrot, our carrot. And if they want to come to our table, they can. But we're not gonna beg them, and we're not gonna wait.
Mhm.
So that's where I am. So how do we move forward with that society, that type of society, and not just somebody? Well, we're gonna wait for them, and we're gonna wait for them to see it's important. And we're no, 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 no. Let's move forward past that into the way it should be.
So I think that, see, that's a tough one. Just because, I mean, I'm trying to think back to, someone that lived in, the 1930s or the 1940s and how things must have been, right? So when we say integration has not worked, and I 100% agree with you in that it has been a lot of us
Yeah.
going to them.
Mhm.
I think that part of it is, the initial, like, you have to think of the initial desire behind integration, right? Where we see that our children are going to schools with textbooks that are 20 years old, where at the white
Exactly.
school, maybe they get textbooks that are new, right? So I'm thinking about, or like even, when I go to this restaurant, I have to go in the back entrance and I sit in the back where it's dirty. The tables are not as clean, the waiters don't come as often. But when the white people go and they can sit in the front of the restaurant, it's cleaner, their waiter comes right away. So I think that it's maybe like I've said this before, that it's a matter of grass is greener, right? Because back in the 30s and 40s, they probably would have killed to have what we have now. Like, I don't think any of us, I mean, can say that we have gone to a restaurant and been asked to go through the back or
Yes,
from
but
any,
we've been,
well,
but hold on, we've been treated now that you're finding out that we've been treated and are being treated crazy in some of these restaurants. We're being asked to leave. Cops are being called on us. Ain't no telling what they're doing to your food in back because you don't know who's cooking it for you. So my thing is, we are now given a lot of symbolism. We're walking and working and walking through symbolism. We have laws on the books that they don't even. You have the Second Amendment, which is a gun law that says it's okay for us to own weapons, but it's not really for us okay. It's not us. It's not okay for us to own a weapon. It's okay for them to own a weapon. In Florida, stand your ground is a symbol for them. It's not a symbol for us because they can stand their ground, but when we stand our ground, we go to jail. For us, symbolism is when back in the 60s when we had our restaurants in 1920s. I think about what Black Wall Street. They was working it out without white folk. White folk was coming in for businesses, and that's what it's getting back to now. I do see it, okay, because black folk are tired. We're tired of being put out of their restaurants. We're tired of the Asians putting hands on people. They don't have a right to put hands on you, but we're giving them our money. We're tired of doing that. We're tired of seeing things that need to be built up in our community. We need our own clinics. We need our own hospitals. We need our own schools. We need our own teachers. We need our own everything because we've been going to them and look at how they're educating our children. Look at the incident where you saw in the daycare that those black children were not even eating. What about the little black boy who was 5 who had a white teacher who made him stick his hands inside of a toilet to unstop it? That's the kind of nonsense that we're putting up with. When do we get tired of putting up with their nonsense and we come say, okay, enough is enough. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to create my online schools. We're going to hire grandmas to come in the homes. And if we can't do the buildings right now, it's a way to do this. We can do it online and we can have the grandmas that's doing nothing to come in and we hire them, pay them $70 a week to come in and make sure our children are getting online correctly, or make sure that the questions are being answered, make sure that they are not having problems understanding or hearing, making sure that everything is going the way it needs to until we get enough funds to build our own schools. I do believe that that can happen. I do believe that, and I know Black people have to work. So this is why we create the grandma funds. This is why we bring in the grandmas because they're sitting there wanting something to do, and we're not using our grandmas. And it told us in the Bible to use our elders. Okay, so once they retire, they're looking like, man, we're not even needed. Yes, we need our grandmas. Let's use our grandmas. Let's pull them into our world, and let's allow them to babysit and bring it back home for them and allow our villages to start raising our children. I believe it's time for us to change the mindset because we've integrated with them. We begin to pick up their mindsets. We begin to act like them. We begin to think like them. We're beginning to do what they do. We're beginning, no, 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 no. Come
but
from
I don't
among. Being separate.
But I don't necessarily think that we've ever done that. Like, I think that we've always maintained our own culture. I think we've always had our own music,
Not at
our own
all.
style. And I think that your utopia is based on integration, right? Like, when you open the doors for everyone, right? Like, I say that we have come where we've come because of like the access to education. We couldn't have like like, even if you saw oh my gosh, Hidden Figures, right? Those black engineers, the way that they were treated, how they were put sort of in the back and ignored. And I think that now, because of integration, you have so many black doctors, you have so many black lawyers, you have so many black people with MBAs and businesses, where back before integration, a lot of these doors were closed for us. We couldn't go to these schools. We couldn't get these degrees. So when you're talking about we can have our own community, I think that now we can, because of how far we came because of integration. So I don't think that that's something that you can necessarily regret. I think that the point is to have, you know, have access to the best education so that we can pass that down to our children and our grandchildren. And then if you are doing really well and you want to, like, you know, I do think that, there are issues in education. And I think that, black teachers, like, I think that they're all important, and but I think that part of that again is because of integration, because we were able to get access to things that the doors were closed to us before, because they didn't think that we were smart enough to get medical degrees. So I think that it's important, to realize that integration, it has played its role. I think it's gotten us this far, and I think where we go from here, there are a lot of options, including, yes, creating, more of a black utopia or black focused community that we were able to get. But I think we don't want to confuse integration 100% bad. I think that it's the grass is greener, right? Like, you sit here, you look back, we were better before things were integrated. But before things were integrated, the people that had to live on the other side of that, realized that things were not necessarily perfect. And there was a reason why they fought for integration. And I think that you have to respect that as having played its role. And at the time, something that was necessary, even if it wasn't 100% beneficial to everyone.
But I think you say integration. I think we integrated not really understanding the issue. I don't really think we understood the damages. I don't really think we understood the whole ramification of the damages that would happen if we integrate it. You know how something you can't see the future, so you do it hoping and praying it's still going to be okay. But now that we see it is not, and it is not working out okay, now it's time to change the narrative. It's time, and this is new for your young people, but for older people, we see it because we see the difference. We see where we see the results of 1920 in Black Wall Street, and we see the results of how great it was for them, and then we see the results of now how we can't even have our own businesses. We don't have our own, but we need our own. But because we don't have our own, we're being treated like crap because we don't have our own, which is so sad. We should have our own, and now we're trying to get our own, and it's almost like we can't get our own because the mindset needs to be changed. How do we change the mindset? Let's just try something new. We tried it before. Let's try something new and see how it works. What's the harm in trying? Is there harm in trying?
I don't think there's harm in trying. This is the hill I'm going to die on, though, that we as Black people do not need to change our mindset. There is nothing wrong with us. I don't think that we've done anything. Our mindset has always been, how do we move forward? How do we do the best that we can with what we have? And I think that we've done exactly that. I think that the mindset that you're referring to is the white wall, where you get so far and then you feel like you can't necessarily go any further, because this is like, I want to get my own business, but I don't necessarily have the best credit, or I don't necessarily have the investors to have my own business. that is not a Black mindset issue. That's a system issue, and that system was created by white people. So I will
Okay.
never say that that is a Black mindset where we're not ambitious, we're not intelligent. We're super creative. We're very ambitious. We're very intelligent. We hold a lot of advanced degrees and bachelor's degrees, and we do a lot with, maybe like we invest a little bit of money into our business and we grow it. Like I think you had the smoothie queen on here a few months ago. Look what she's
Mhm.
done with what she has. So I think
Yes.
that it's never a
Yes.
question of Black mindset. I think it's how do we coexist in a system that's built against us. And I like your idea of like creating things for Black people, going and having an initiative to have our own businesses. If I want to go and get a smoothie, I know I can go to the smoothie queen. If I want to go get a new mattress, I can go to this Black, mattress seller company. But again, I don't think that has anything to do with our Black mindset. I think it's a system that is built to work against us, that we have to either learn how to um like we're at like a crossroads, right? Like keep going with it or come up with another solution where we don't necessarily need the system, which is what you're advocating for. But I don't think I'll ever agree that we want like totally we should have never integrated, because who knows, we probably would have had like, you know they white groups don't necessarily like to see us, successful sometimes. So I think that looking at, like it's hard to know what would have happened if we hadn't integrated. We might be super successful and have our own Black Wall Streets everywhere, but we could also have the worst of everything, the worst books, the worst education, the worst doctors, the worst lawyers, the worst health outcomes. I mean, not saying that we have the best now, but things could,
No, we
but I'm saying that things could have been worse, and I don't think that we'll necessarily know for sure because we just didn't choose that route, or that's the route untaken, if that makes sense.
um I hear you. Okay, so you're saying that we have to change the system. Is that what you're saying?
I think that it's the system. I don't think it's a Black mindset. We thinking we need to follow Black white people. I think that if anything has shown us that Black people like are we I think that we do rally around our own. Like even with, George Floyd, when I went to some of those marches, there were white and Black people there, but we were there with signs, we're there with our printed out gear and everything. Like it's just, I think it's different for us. I think we're always going to advocate for ourselves. I think that we just need to see that in each other, I guess.
Okay. Boy, I'm understanding what you're saying, but I still have an issue with us waiting around for other people to
Yeah.
tell us that it's okay to grow.
We don't need them to tell us it's okay to grow. I think they make it hard for us to grow without them because of the path that we've chosen,
Okay,
right?
can we
Where we're
change the path?
all
How do we change the path?
together.
How do we change the path? How do we change the path? Changing the path does what? How do we got to be able
I
to do
think
something?
I
I
think
just don't.
everything I so
So is
I,
everything contingent on them?
I don't, no, definitely not. Definitely not. Like I think that if we sit back and if they had their way, we would just kind of sit back and be grateful. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh, we're just not gonna advocate for change. We're not gonna march. We're not gonna have our own businesses. I think that would make, they would be perfectly okay with that, and we would all be safe Black people. But I don't think that we've ever done that. I think we've continued to do what we have to do our part. But again, like if you think of um like the human body, right? You have the left side of the brain and you have the right side of the brain. You could have the left side of the brain all you want, but you're still going to be missing a lot of motor and function if you don't have half your brain that's working. So I'm saying like we can do everything that we want to do, but I think that until white people look at the system that they've created and
How do
do
we force them
better,
to look at their system that they created? How do we force
well,
them?
I think that's sort of already happening sort of.
Okay.
But I think part of it is I don't know. I think for us it might just be that idea of incrementalism, right? Where it's a little bit at a time. And when you look at our lifespan, it looks like, gosh, like nothing's happened. Like we're in the same place. But if you step back, big picture, you
Yeah.
might see that we've gone further than it looks when you're in it right in front of it. Like it's like a map, right? When you're right at the map, you can't see anything. It doesn't make any sense. But sometimes you have to step back, you look, and the picture's a lot clearer when you've been able to kind of step away from it. So I think it's that idea of like little baby steps at a time. And I think you're always going to have ignorant people. But I think part of it is also Black people, like, I think we can't be afraid to keep speaking up because
Mhm.
I noticed that when you talk to white people that I tend to have very negative views, okay, or very ignorant views. Okay, who have you spoken to? I spoke to Sally and Nancy and Jessica. Have you spoken to a single Black person? Have you spoken to anyone that's affected by this
Right.
issue? No, but
Right.
my uncle Jason doesn't count. Like you
Right.
need to talk. So I think it's part of like making sure that we are, you know, opening our mouths, speaking up, continuing to be loud, and just baby steps. I don't
Baby
think there's a
steps.
magic answer.
But it's okay. We'll take baby steps. Okay. That's what it's going to take. But here again, we have to deal with the mindset. Well, I don't want to. I know you're saying it's not a mindset change, but to me, I've been around a little longer, so I'm seeing. I see from whence we came. Okay, and I see how the mindset has changed, and it's when he said to come from among, to be separate, to don't follow behind enemies, he meant that because you can see right now, we act, we think, we do as they have taught us to do. We think how they have taught us to think. We treat each other the way they have taught us to treat each other. So this is the damages that integration to me has done. I see our children, our boys, doing more of dating outside of our race, which is to me is genocide. I'm an older adult, so I see the future. I remember when the Asians, Chinese people used to kill their girl babies back in the day. And then 30 years later, 20 years later, when those babies, the baby boys grew up, they didn't have wives to marry. And then the Chinese looked and said, oh my, we did do that was dumb. But that was 20 years later, but they didn't see it while they were doing it. You understand what I'm saying? So we didn't see it while Martin Luther King or MLK was saying, hey, we're going to come together, we're going to integrate. But my thinking is somebody should have said, hey, we've been under them for slavery. We're not going back under them. We're not going back to integrate because it didn't work through slavery. They still had that mentality where we were their subjects, where they're their property, and they still have it today. It never changed.
But I
So
think that
how, go
But
ahead.
I don't agree. I don't think that it was ever we want to go back under white people. I think it's we've been under them for so long. They have the best medicines, the best schools, the best. We want that. That's not
So
fair
why
that
couldn't
we
we?
are here
Okay,
and we
so
can't have.
why didn't we have that same mindset? Because we saw in 1920 Black Wall Street, we saw it being built. We saw different black cities being built. That all we had to do was continue paying our monies toward our own black cities, our own black hospitals, our own black schools, and it would have been better than
Maybe,
theirs.
maybe, but remember, there might have been folks that didn't know about these places. I think we have access to so much information now, right? Like we can go on the internet, we can pick up our phone and type in whatever and find whatever information. But at the time, there's probably so much going on in the world right now that we're not even aware of, right? But in 50, 60 years, we'll see it in a history book. Obviously, something as big as COVID, we all have experienced or been impacted by it in some way. But I think that to say that, everyone was aware of, the Black Wall Street, like, no, in their
Yeah.
reality might have been, I see, I work for this white family, and the little girl has these nice shoes, nice dresses, goes to a nice school. Why is my child in rags? Why is my child wearing shoes that are falling apart? And their mindset behind that, I can imagine, is I'm going to send my child to this white school because she shouldn't be the only one to have nice things. My son's going to get nice things too. But I mean, it's give and take, and it's like I agree that it's hard to see the outcome, right? Because at the time, it's just, I'm going to get the idea I think was always equality, not I want to be under them all the time so we could just be looking over their shoulders. No, it was always, if you have this, I want this too. And I think that
Okay,
that's
even with
also,
that, let me ask you a question. Even with that, you saying that, now that we see that it's still the same mindset, what is the plan, or how do we start to make a plan to be free? What's the plan? What's the end game? How do we get out from, and we didn't see this, but I think we are up under them again. It just happened. It just happened. Okay. That's not what we were stepping out planning to do, but it happened. So now that it's happened, how do we get free?
I will always say that we are no, this is not the same thing as being enslaved. Like, it's not the same thing as being whipped and beat and raped, and like, it's not, you could never, if honestly it would they would, if we sat next to someone that was in slavery and we tried to make the comparison, we would probably offend them to like the depths of their soul, because they would say, you cannot even imagine, you cannot even compare what I went through to
But
your
aren't we being
mark.
treated
Like,
the same way? We're not being whipped, but we're still being jailed. We're going to prison at an
but
alarming rate.
no, no,
We just had,
I'm not denying that we have a system that's built that is oppressive to Black people. I'm not denying that. But I am just saying that if we had someone that was literally lived through the horrors that were slavery, they would probably walk away, because they would be like, it's not even on the same, it's incrementalism, right? Little bit at a time. So I'm not saying that things are good. I'm
uh-huh,
not saying that things are the way that they should be, because they're not. There's a lot of stuff wrong, none of which is our fault. I think we've done the best that we could with the hand that we were given. And I think that, any other, group were given the same set of circumstances and didn't get a single thing in return, right? Like, how, the Native Americans, they have their land. They are very oppressed, obviously, lots going on there, but they have their land. And, even, during the Japanese internment camps, they got an apology. They might have even got some sort of money. We haven't gotten anything. Like, we got citizenship, and then just kind of like, you're US citizens. You don't even have citizenship at your original country of origin, but just go ahead. That's the best that we got. And I think that we took that and we have opened businesses. We've become engineers, doctors, like, we've been really creative. So I think that we've done a good job. I think that any issue that's, going on, I don't think has anything to do with us not working hard enough or being loud enough or advocating enough for ourselves, because I think that we've done that.
okay. I still, okay, we see, okay. I
I
totally,
might just are totally like
no, I do think that, and see, here's the difference in age group. Okay. I see it one way, you see it another way. I see it as a mindset that needs to be changed. You say, well, it's the mindset is fine. But I'm like,
for
okay,
us,
it's something for
for
us.
us.
But wait a minute. But okay, I see, but I'm looking at the prisoners. I'm looking at, how they use the system and how they have used the system and they continue using the system against us, but it's a system, it's their system. So how do we come from under, or how do we break, what do we do about that system that they keep using against us? How do we stop them from using that system? I guess that's what I'm asking, against us. Because if we come out and talk about racism, for instance, the NFAC man, Master Grandmaster Jay, okay, he was talking against racism. He was fighting for Brianna. He was wanting to create a defense for Black people. Anytime that we come and somebody wants to rise and wants to free, or wants to talk about racism, or wants to talk about the inequality, the injustice system that we see, then they want to use their system against us. How do we break that system down? And how do we, I know they know that, I know they know what they're doing. We know what they're doing. How do we break free of this injustice system? We just had a Capitol building, Mary, what's her name? Lori, who got no jail time for a terrorist act that we would have, in fact, died. if it had been someone black climbing that wall. Okay, that system is jacked up. What do we do about that system?
I think that's a system thing, right? Like that's not a black people, like we are doing something to deserve it. That's the way the system has been built. It's working the way that it was supposed to, right? It was meant to oppress and imprison black people. I think there's two things. So, as cliche as it sounds, like please vote. Like when you see so and so been in office for 50 years, they don't need to be in office anymore. Please go and vote for someone else that actually has experience. And I think also like people when you even if you're thinking like, "Oh, I could never do that." If you are having an interest and you have a heart for people and you want to run for office and you're not afraid to do it and you feel like you have the time, do it. Like I think that's where change happens. Like when you have people that are used to, they worked from 9 to 5, they've been out there marching and advocating, and they opened their own business. That's who needs to be out there running for these offices, not John, who has run for 7 terms and is going for an eighth. So I think that's one of them. But I also think part of it is like getting ourselves into those spaces. And I think that, like, education is one of those things where we have a lot of black teachers. And I think that just getting ourselves into, like, law and each of those spaces where we can actually make executive decisions is I think it can be very beneficial because we can make change. And no one's really like, if you're a lawyer, maybe someone that is white and 70 is not going to have that empathy and that level of understanding for someone that is young and sitting in front of them and has been given like a very hard hand. So I think putting yourself in that space where you can advocate for other people, like whether you're a lawyer or a judge, I think it's important because we understand our experiences more than anyone else. And I think just making sure to take up space in those places where we can make change, that's really all we can do is just keep doing exactly what we've doing. And I think we'll get there. Maybe not this year or next year, but someday.
So we still continue doing. I understand what you're saying when you say vote. I understand that. But I don't believe in just voting. I don't believe that that's the only way. I do believe that we put money behind a candidate. For instance, if we, and this is why Black people are not helping and working with Black people. Just for instance, we have Paul Howard, who he was the DA in Georgia. He brought charges up on Rayshard Brooks, the cop that shot Rayshard Brooks. Remember, that was a young man who died at Wendy's. He brought charges up against the officer that murdered Rayshard, and he was running for office. And the white folk got mad, of course, and they said, "We're going to get you out." And what did they do? They put up a Black woman who had worked in his office. Her name was Fannie Willis. They put her up against him. They supported her. They backed her. The police backed her. The attorney for Rayshard, the cop that killed Rayshard Brooks, he backed her. They put money behind her, and she won. Black people did not stand up for Paul Howard, okay, who had brought charges up against the officer, which was crazy. I don't know why they didn't lobby behind Paul Howard, who was making a change. They lobbied behind Fannie Willis. How do we change? Now, is that not a mindset to you? I don't know what is. That's a
I
mindset.
can't
What is
like I can't really speak to that because I don't remember the story. I'm not like familiar with it.
that? But just from what I just said, is that not a mindset? Why didn't they? Why did they not jump behind Paul Howard to allow him to continue what he was starting?
It's hard to say without knowing the whole story.
Okay, from my understanding and from what I saw, every time Black people stand up for Black people, like for instance, Ice Cube. I always want to say Ice T. Lord, I don't know why I want to call this man Ice T. But Ice Cube, okay. Remember when Biden was running? Ice Cube stood up and said, "Hey, you guys, let's wait until we get we ask for something," and he gives us, and he tells us, "Hey, we're gonna do this, that, and the other for Black people." Blah blah blah. He never did. But when Ice Cube came Ice Cube came and said that, black people jumped on his balls and said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to vote for him first, and then we're going to ask for something, which was totally backwards. Then we had NFAC man who was trying to say, hey, you guys, let's start a defense for black people.
Uh-oh. Are you still there? Technical difficulties again.
We are. We're coming back. Stay tuned. Yes, here we are. I'm waiting on my guest to come back. We are there. She is. Thank you. I'm so sorry, Miss Kiara, for all of this inconvenience. But when we go off like that, we're gonna come back. We're just gonna maybe 10 more minutes. I want you to give me some steps in what you think we can do in order, because like I was saying before we split, I think it's gonna take us black folk coming together, because every time black people come together and want to fight for something, you have black people who have been trained by white supremacy to come against that. Okay. I think that we have to learn the code of behavior. I think that's where education comes in at. I think we have to learn how to come together and support each other. No matter what, it's not always something that you have to say, well, we always want to come against the cause. Let's just sit back and watch and join. And if you don't like it later, we can come in the back room and say, hey, you guys, I think we're doing, blah, 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 blah. But we'll come online and we'll start typing, well, I think it's crazy. Oh, we don't need to do it this way. We need to do it that way. Let's stop doing that. Let's come in the back room, come to the back and come around the table and say, hey, let's take this into a different direction. Why is it that we have to bring our toxicity into the mainstream and let everybody know that we have an issue with each other? No, let's stop doing that. We have to discuss stuff at the table like they do. They don't, white folk don't come out. Kyle Rittenhouse, they all supported him. He was a murderer. He is a murderer. They're supporting this murderer and gave him $2 million and backed him. Why is it that they can do that and we can't? That's what needs to be changed with us. We have to learn a code of behavior, how to come together and change situations and change things. We can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting to get the different results. It's going to take us putting money behind a candidate, okay? And we voting, if not, or because I don't believe in voting anyway. I think it's going to take us supporting us to be free. Nobody, white supremacy is not going to free us. White supremacy is not going to say, okay, I feel bad for the Negroes today. Let me make a law for them, or let me give them reparations, or let me cut a check, or let me give them 50 million like I just did the Asians, or let me give them 30 billion just like I did for the Pacific Islanders. I don't believe white supremacy is going to do that. I believe that it's going to take us coming together to support us. Okay. Give us some steps that you think besides voting. What are some other steps that we can do to make things happen, to start right now today? What can we do today to make that change start in the right direction?
Uh, well,
Because I know you're thinking about voting. I understand that. I do.
no, no, I think, I guess, like I said, just trying to make ourselves present in these spaces where we can make decisions and impact people's lives for the better. So I know that people automatically think education and people think education and social work, but I also think again, like, law or, going into sciences and finance. And these are still areas where like we need Black faces, we need Black people. Like these areas cannot just be white spaces. Like I think that we need to kind of enter them and um I don't know, leave our mark, leave a little bit of our skills and a little bit of our bring some of our like passion and compassion that we have. Like I know that you said no, like you mentioned with Kyle Rittenhouse, how everyone kind of rallied behind him. And I think that maybe that's someone that makes us better than them because, we don't, I think that there's just something maybe a little bit different about our mindset where I think if we, certain things that, doesn't necessarily occur to someone that is white, like courtesy wise. So even something little like when you go into a house, make sure you speak to everyone. Even something as far as when you are walking in front of someone in a grocery store and they're looking at an item, you say, "Excuse me." Like you make sure. So even little things like that, like I think that like little things like that have, I think, created an awareness and of other people and like acknowledgement that other people are important. So I think that I don't think that the way is to support people that we kind of know is wrong. So I would hope that if we had our own Kyle Rittenhouse that was a murderer, that we wouldn't be advocating for him. I feel like the people that we actually stand up for and advocate for are the people that need it. So like George Floyd, people that are being, Sandra Bland, people that really need it. Like we don't waste our social justice movements on people that like are wrong. Like if someone goes out and murders 10, like 20 people, we're not going to be rallying around him the way that, maybe the white community would rally around
And
theirs.
that's what
But
we,
no, no, no. But I think that's a good thing. Like I think that's part of what makes us. I think that gives us a little bit more like humanity. We're a little bit more considerate. I think in general, like we're more like I don't know, more connected to each other, I think. Like, I don't know. Anyways, that's a conversation for another day, but I just
but
yeah,
I see what
I
you're
think
talking about. But I think we have to learn how to stick together. And I'm not saying necessarily in like the, like you said, the ones that, that are murdering, because they
like
stand
we're
no
more
matter
so
what theirs do. Go
we're
ahead.
more selective in our
Uh-huh.
like even in like their view of oppression, all right? Like I don't want to wear a mask. Like when George Floyd said I can't breathe, they listened to him, but when I say it because of my mask, no one listens. Well, it's a freaking mask. Like you're alive. So I think that even the like what we choose to like stand our ground on is so different from the stuff that they choose. I don't think that the bar should ever be, well, we want to be more like them in the way that they pull in and support people that are wrong. No, I think that's one of the things that makes us awesome is the fact that when we choose to stand on something, it really matters. You don't see us on TV advocating for stupid stuff, like they do. So I think, no, I think we just need to make ourselves present in, Black spaces. And I think just making sure, like, as much as we can, supporting Black businesses and I should. Okay. I'm kind of giggling because I know I could do a little bit better at myself too. Just taking a close look at like the way that you could better support, Black businesses and keep our money in our community. Like, if you have a Black-owned hair supply store that's 20 miles, if you can do it and just drive the 20 miles to make sure that your dollar is circulating in your community, just do it. Um, and I think just kind of again passing that information on to our kids and um I think that's the best we can do, just realizing that it's not an overnight thing and just it's going to be a slow process.
But we do have to start somewhere. And I think now is us supporting us. And I'll come back to that every time because I've seen how integration has not worked for us. And I think for me and for mine, I think we have to come together and support our own. I think we have to educate our own babies. I think that it's things that we can do as far as online. We can start education, like my granddaughter goes to a Muslim school. She's not Muslim, but she goes to a Muslim school. I think but we also even have to look at that as far as making sure that we are getting the help that we need, because I do believe that we have been so traumatized that we don't even realize or recognize the damages or the damage that has been done to us through the years, over the years, and passed down traumas, passed down generational curses, passed down generational hurts that we need to address. Mind, and I'm gonna come back to mindset. We have to address some things that we've been believing about ourselves that white folk have told us and showed us. We have to begin to counteract that, to deprogram ourselves, and that starts with education, and maybe some adult programs. Okay, and even with our therapists, we need to start fresh and new because they're therapying on old information, on hurts themselves. So I think we have to start right now with educating our own children, and it starts from there. And like you said, it's nothing that's going to happen overnight. It's nothing it may take 10 years, it may take, but I do believe that if we're walking in that direction slowly, and we have to keep reiterating in our keep up with the pop-ups, okay? Because I see the pop-ups are coming up where Black people are coming together and they're supporting each other. And I think that we have to keep saying it, keep doing it, keep doing it. I think that is what it's going to take is us keep on reiterating. Keep talking about Black-owned businesses. Keep talking about you supporting your own. We have to keep talking about it. If we don't keep talking about it, black folk go back to where it was. I believe they had to fall in order for us to rise, and I believe that right now this is our time to thrive. This is our time to get ahead. This is our time to come together. This is our time to be free. And if we are going to be free, it is going to be us and not us and them, because we've tried the us and them, and the us and them, they always, because you have a people talking about us that has not been totally free, okay, but they have been. So it's almost like they always take over the conversation, they always take over the situation. So in order for them not to take over this situation or this conversation, it has to be only us. There's no time for us to share our spaces with them right now. We have to share our love and share share us with us right now. And maybe later, after we've gotten stronger, after we've gotten a little training to understand how they really maneuver, then we can include them. But right now, it has to be only us. We have to learn how to love us. We have to learn how to support us. We have to learn how to be there for us. We have to learn that we're important, just as important as them. I remember when my kids were small, I would give them 50 cents or a dollar, or whatever. And on my birthday, I would tell them to go and buy me a card. You know what I was teaching them? I was teaching them that I was just as important as them, because so many parents don't teach their children how to honor them. They don't teach their children how to love them. They teach their children how to be selfish. And we don't even understand that when we have a birthday and our kids don't bring a gift to the table. I'm just saying, I'm just trying to give you an example of how we can show us that we're important. And anytime we have children and we don't teach them how important the parent is, they become selfish, they become self-centered, and your birthday come and they look at you and hey, girl, happy birthday, mine, keep going. But then when their birthday come, they looking at you for a gift. Hold on. I think you have to teach your child how important it is. Okay. Miss Kiara, I do appreciate you coming on. I really do. I really appreciate all the time that you've taken. I do appreciate your ideas, and we're gonna have to do this again, but I don't want to take up all your time. So we are going to let you go, because I think we've really we've been here like an hour, almost an hour and a half, and I do appreciate it. And I didn't want to stay on all day, but I do appreciate you, and we are going to catch you on the next trip. Do you have any last words, or are you good?
No, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for
I'll look
coming.
forward to next time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ms. Cooper. Have a great day. Thank you.
Alrighty, you
All
too.
right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks. Man, that was a great conversation. It was very interesting. I really do appreciate this young woman coming on. And I think we have two great ideas. You have the older and you have the younger. I do believe that she is very good for young people. Um, but I do believe that the idea of us not integrating and coming from among, being separate and learning not their ways, is what we have to thrive to do right now. We've tried to love it on them. We've tried being there for them. Um, we've tried it all, and but now it's time for us to love on us. It's time for us to be there for us. It's time for us to start teaching our own. We can no longer continue trying to pursue them. We can no longer wait for them to tell us it's okay. We can no longer wait for them to continue trying uh, to lead and guide us. We don't need them to lead and guide us. We don't need them um, to to take us by the nose. We don't need that. We need for them to back off. We need for them to do the work in their community. We need them to pay attention to their stuff instead of coming over here trying to tell us what to do or trying to tell us, hey, you need to teach your children, blah, blah, blah. I had a guy that came on Facebook and told me that we need to teach our children some morals and teach our children. Hold on, sir. Whose children are murdering, shooting up schools? Whose children are shooting up churches? Now, whose children killed 9 people in a church? So until you take care of that, you stand down and learn something. You have no voice in this conversation. So we have to begin to shut them down because they think that they know Black people what's best for Black people. No, you're not Black. So you can't tell me what's best for Black people. I'm going to tell you what's best. And for step one is educating our own, whether do it online or whether we school, homeschool. Okay, I know Black folk got to work. We have grandmas that we can hire grandmas and pay them $70 to come into the house to make sure that these kids get online. We need some Black teachers. We need to start up. And I know that it's going to take work, but we can do this. But it's going to be up to us if we're going to be free. It's going to be up to us. Yes, this is my new channel. It's called Our New Reality. I have two channels, and hopefully you'll check out my other channel. It is called Specific Cheek. Maybe you'll check out that one. And I'm going to go live on there also. But mostly right now, I'm trying to build up this channel, not trying to leave that channel out. So I will go on that channel a little later just to let them know about this channel, because this channel, I'm trying to build this one up to be able to do some other things as far as Africa is concerned on this channel. But right now, we are really talking about the mental health condition of Black America, Black folk. Okay. How do we get back on track? How do we deal with us? How do we um, do what we were called to do? How do we focus on us right now? We don't need to focus. And how do we? I saw something where Dr. Umar, his son was dating white women, or his son was interested in white women, and or not his son. I'm sorry, it was a woman that came on his show, and she was asking him how does she deal with it, and he said just tell him that this is the way we're going to do it, and we don't date snow bunnies. And that's what he said to do. He said you just tell them this is not how we're going to do it. We don't go dating around. We stick with our own, and it's called genocide if you don't. So we have to begin to teach our sons. We have to begin to teach our children. We have to begin to teach each other. And we have to continue reiterating how important we are, how important our society is. And we have to shut down Lil Nas, Lil X Nas, the little boy that's coming on BET, kissing on. We got to shut that down. That needs to be, because that's white supremacy stuff. That white folks behind that all day long. Okay, I don't care what nobody say. White folks is behind that, and we as Black people need to shut him down. Period. We don't have to conform. We don't have to compromise. We don't even have to speak about it. Look, little boy, sit down until you get it together. That's what we do. We boycott that right there, that behavior. And until we let him know how we really feel, he gonna keep on trying to itch it on. Let me shut him down. He can come back and clap back all he wants. We will avoid. You are voided. You are voided right now. Till you get yourself together, we're gonna void your whole behavior. We're gonna boycott you and boycott anything that you do until you understand that that type of behavior, we will not allow you to put that. That's LGBT elemental P issue right there. Okay, and I'm gonna show you a link. I'm gonna leave a link what their true what they're really trying to do. Okay, and they are after your children. They are trying to recreate this whole society. This is why God told us to come from among, be separate, and learn not their ways. He told us that. So when you conform or when you compromise with enemies, this is the result you have. They are using this boy to kind of get to our children because they know that's not our mess. That's their mess. They've been messing with their children. They do all of that stuff. They've been doing that but breaking in slave since slavery. Okay. So now they want us to feel like it's okay for this homosexual stuff. No, it's not okay. And stop allowing this little nasty Negro to influence your children. Turn him off, boycott him, and we're gonna let him know that we are not having it. You sit down, get yourself together, and when you get yourself together, then you come on back, come correct. Because that behavior is unacceptable in the Black community, and that garbage right there is null and void. We are not even entertaining him. So guess what? And until we get to the point where we are shutting that down, and we letting him know that you get it together and do what you need to do, because that behavior will never be accepted in the Black community. Okay. So we got young folk that think totally different. And I just showed you young folk and how we think, older people and how the younger people think, totally different, but we still coming to the same conclusion. With that said, family, I'm going to end this live, and I hope you go and check out my other channel, which is considered Chic, on YouTube, and I'm trying to build up both channels. But the ones that'll come and see this live after it's over, thank you. Like and share. Hit the bell so that you will be notified when we're coming on this channel. I appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming over. I appreciate all that you're doing, and keep coming back. We'll be here next Tuesday at 11:30 again. Okay. Who will be here next Tuesday at 11:30. So come on back and join us. But we have to get it together, and we're going to continue talking about this mental illness. We are going to continue talking about the symbolism because we've been given symbols. Okay, we've been given laws on the book that mean absolutely nothing. They don't even stand by them. So just because they have a law in the book, you say, "Oh, they're supposed to be doing this." It's on the book, but they ain't following. White folk do what they want to do. They've been doing what they want to do. Okay, that's how you can climb a Capitol building and get no charges. You don't even go to jail. All you have to do is tell a judge, I apologize. I did my last show talked about that. You apologize to the judge and you move forward. No, that's not good enough. Okay, that's not good enough. So with that said, family, thank you for joining. Thank you for coming, and keep coming back next Tuesday. We'll see you here at 11:30. With that said, peace.